Okay, so today we're going to be talking about what are called reflexive verbs, which is not that different from what you did when you conjugated verbs in the present tense before. We're just going to add what are called reflexive pronouns, and you guys are going to do a little project with this, so make sure you take notes on this video. I will also explain this when you're in class at the virtual meeting on the whiteboard. But you want to make sure that you look at this slideshow, which is linked on today's folder, and also that you watch this video and take notes, okay? So reflexive verbs are, there's a group of them, and you guys have on your vocab list, you have all sorts of reflexive verbs like lavarse, afeitarse, ducharse, all of those are on your vocab list. And the reason that they have a se at the end is because they're what are called reflexive verbs. So let's take the verb, the Spanish verb lavar, which means to wash. Okay. So if you think about things that you can wash, your clothes, the dishes, the car, the windows, right? In Spanish, we would just use lavar for this. So the difference between a non-reflexive verb and a reflexive verb is if I wash the car, it doesn't happen to me. But if I wash my face, not only do I make the effort of doing the action to wash, but it also happens to me. And in that case, that's a reflexive verb. So we're going to look at a few of these, all right? So if I wash things that aren't part of me, not attached to my body, then I'm just going to use the verb lavar, which is just an AR verb that you would conjugate the way you normally would, right? Lavo, lavas, lava, lavamos, lavais, and lavan, right? So you've seen this before. Lavo la ropa would be I wash the clothes. Lavo los platos, I wash the plates, etc. But if I wash my hands, wash my hair, wash my face, not only do I do the action, but the action happens to me. So in English, sometimes we communicate this by saying oneself or himself, herself. We don't have to do that in English, but sometimes we do, just to make it clear that it's a reflexive action. So it's basically washing things that are attached to yourself, right? And in this case, lavo el carro would be I wash the car, but me lavo las manos would be I wash my hands. And that's because not only am I washing, but that is happening to me. It's my hands that are getting washed, right? So this would just be for the yo form. But if you're washing something that is attached to yourself, in other words, it happens to you, you need to add the word me in front of it. And we'll talk about how you conjugate these in a minute. So lavar is to wash something else. Lavarse is to wash oneself, basically, a part of one's body, right? And you guys, if you look on your vocab list, you're going to see a bunch of verbs that have se at the end. And if you do take Spanish 3, my Spanish 3 kids are used to me pretty often saying you are not allowed to ignore the se because they want to, right? But I'm going to show you how to conjugate this without ignoring the se. So this is what it looks like, okay? That se gets taken off of the end and it gets put in front of the verb, but there are certain pronouns that you use with each subject, okay? So for the yo form, it's me, and I'll give you this in a second. The tu form would be te, and you can make a chart of this. When we do this in the virtual meeting in class, I won't be making a chart on the whiteboard. But notice that then once you've dropped the se and changed it, for example, for the yo form, changed it to me and put it in front of the verb, then you take what's left, lavar, and just conjugate it into the yo form the way you normally have. So remember, o, as, a, amos, an, that's what you're using here, right? So the yo form would be me lavo, tu form would be te lavas, the él or ella or usted form would be se lava, nosotros form would be nos lavamos, vosotros form would be os laváis, and then the ellos and ustedes form would be se lavan. Okay, so notice that the verb lavar, which is just a regular AR verb, is conjugated in the present tense the way you have been doing it up until now. The only thing that's changed is that se means that I have to use basically a new set of pronouns that you're learning that are there. These are called reflexive pronouns, and they change depending on what the subject is. Okay, and you're going to have to put that in front of the conjugated verb. So again, if you look on your vocab list, you will see that at the end of the verb, all of these are reflexive verbs that are on your vocab list. There is a se attached to the end, right? You drop that. You conjugate the verb the way you normally would in the present tense. Okay, o, as, a, amos, a, an, or for er and ir verbs, o, es, e, hemos, or imos, and en. And then you put the appropriate reflexive pronoun in front of the verb depending on what the subject is. So you've actually done this before. So you might remember in Spanish 1, and probably you took it with Miss Economy, one of the first things that you learned how to say is my name is. Literally, you were saying, I call myself. Llamar means to call. So when you said me llamo, you were actually using this type of verb. When you asked the question, ¿Cómo te llamas?, you were using the tú form. So again, a reflexive verb. What do you call yourself, literally? So llamarse, if you conjugate it, it would be me llamo, tú te llamas, él se llama, nosotros nos llamamos, and ellos se llaman. But notice that the verb llamar, it's an AR verb. It was conjugated with the o, as, a, amos, an endings that you already know, right? And the only thing that changes, there's an addition of a reflexive pronoun in front of the verb. So those verb endings are the AR endings that you already know. All right, so these are some reflexive verbs that I believe are on your vocab list. Levantarse means to get up, like to get up in the morning would be yo me levanto, I get up. It can also be to stand up. So you may have remembered Miss Economy if she wanted you to move around the classroom saying levántense, that means get up. Sentarse is an E to IE stem changer. So remember when we talked about boot verbs? That's still going to happen here. The only thing that's going to be different is now you're adding a reflexive pronoun at the beginning of the verb. Okay, so if it was a stem changing boot verb, like sentar, it's still going to do that here. It's going to conjugate normally. The only thing that's different is that there's a reflexive pronoun in front of the verb. Dormirse, we remember this one, to sleep. It's an O to UE stem changer, and it's still going to be an O to UE stem changer in the reflexive. Dormir means to sleep. Dormirse means to fall asleep. Ponerse means to put something on. And remember that was a GR regular in the yo form, right? Pongo. So ponerse, conjugated into the yo form, would be me pongo. So levantarse, an AR verb, right? You take off the se, you use a reflexive pronoun for the yo form, which is me. You put that in front, and then you take levantar and you just conjugate it the way you normally would with an O at the end. So for the tú form, the reflexive pronoun is te, and then you're going to take levantar and just conjugate it into the tú form the way you always have with AS at the end. Same thing with the él or ella form. The reflexive pronoun would be se for él, ella, and usted. And then you're just going to take levantar and conjugate it the way you normally would. So you would end up with él se levanta. And nosotros form, the nosotros reflexive pronoun is nos. So you take out that se, you change it to nos, you put it in front, and then you take levantar and you conjugate it the way you normally would. So levantamos. And for the ellos form, the reflexive pronoun again is se, and then you're going to take levantar and put it into the ellos form, so you would get an at the end, ellos se levantan. All right, but stem changing verbs like sentarse, it's an E to IE stem changing verb. So remember that stem changing verbs change in every form except the nosotros and the vosotros form, right? So I'm going to change that E to IE everywhere except for the nosotros form here. And then I'm going to use the reflexive pronouns in front of the verb. So sentarse means to sit down. Yo me siento would be I sit. Basically, I sit myself down. Tú te sientas, you sit yourself down, etc., etc. Él se sienta, nosotros nos sentamos, ellos se sientan. So you are still going to, if I tell you it's a stem changing verb, it's a boot verb, then it's still going to be a boot verb here. The only thing that you're adding is reflexive pronoun in front of the verb. And same thing with dormirse, O to UE stem changer. So yo form, yo me duermo, tú form, tú te duermes. El en ella form would be él se duerme, ella se duerme, right? Nosotros form, nosotros nos dormimos. So no stem change there. Remember, no stem change in the nosotros or vosotros form. And ellos se duermen would be they sleep, right? And dormirse again means to fall asleep, to put oneself to sleep, kind of. Ponerse, again, to put something on, and it's a geo verb. So that means it's got an irregular yo form. Yo me pongo, I put something on myself. But then it's going to be regular everywhere else. It's just an ER verb, right? The ER verb endings, es, hemos, and en. So again, this is dormir conjugated it in the present tense. It's a stem changing verb, and that's to sleep. But dormirse is to fall asleep. All right, so this is how I would do this if I was describing a morning routine, okay? Todos los días yo, well, the reflexive pronoun for the yo form is me, all right? So I would say me first, yo me, and then I would take levantar and put it in the yo form. So yo me levanto, okay? Todos los días yo me levanto a las 7. Not every verb here is reflexive. The verb ir is not reflexive here. It's voy, vas, va, vamos, van, right? So in the yo form, I would say voy al baño. Lavarse is a reflexive verb. I know that because there's a se at the end. So I would change that se to me, and then I would take lavar and put it in the yo form. So voy al baño, me lavo la cara y me afeito. So I did the same thing with afeitarse. I took off the se, changed it to me, put it in front, and then afeitar I put in the yo form, so it would be afeito. Luego me visto, and this is an E to I stem changing verb, so I would change the stem there. Tomo un poco de desayuno, so tomar is not a reflexive verb, and I know that because there's no se at the end, so I didn't bother worrying about that. I just put it in the yo form, tomo. And then, por fin me lavo los dientes. So that's what that would look like, okay? And the only ones where I put me were the verbs that had a se at the end that told me that it was a reflexive verb. All right, so the same thing would happen here. It's an E to IE stem changer. So I'm talking about Juana now. I'm going to do the ella form. So Juana se despierta a las 6:30, se levanta, va al baño y se ducha. Okay, I'm just putting all of these, I'm taking the verbs and conjugating them into the ella form, but I'm putting se in front of it because that's a reflexive pronoun that you use with the other ella form. Ella se seca, se peina y se pinta la cara. All right, so what you guys are going to be doing is describing either your daily routine or the daily routine of, it can be a character. I've had people do Disney characters. I've had all kinds of different people on these slides. I would have had you do probably storybook in class on paper, but we're going to do slides instead because we're doing virtual. And I will put some examples on the folder. There's also, you need to make sure that you look at, there's a sheet, a document that tells you how to do this project. I'll talk about it in class when we do the virtual meeting. And there's another slide presentation, Google slide presentation that explains how to do this. Okay, so again, this is the only the second project grade that we've had for the semester, and some of you, we did a comparisons slides project, and if you didn't turn that in, it really damaged your grade. You want to make sure that you get this done. This is going to be due on next Thursday. So I'll talk about that a little bit more at the virtual meeting today, but make sure that you take notes on this video. Make sure that you take notes on the slides, because I'm going to include those on your daily folder, and then make sure you're taking notes during the virtual meeting so that you know how to do these reflexive verbs and you can use them for your project.